Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to my Saturday Hodgepodge for this week. My weekly wrap-up of reading, booktube things, life events, whatever the heck it is I want to talk about. I thought I would deal with reading first because, this month I've been doing a lot of buddy reads, which are spread out over the month, so I haven't been finishing a lot of books, so I wanted to talk about that. So one of my buddy reads was of John Dos Passos' USA trilogy, and this month we were on book 2 in that trilogy, which was 1919. This is a buddy read I was doing with Jack, the Rambling Raconteur, and we finished the book, I believe, or I finished the book on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, and it was really kind of a relief. Now, I am a fan of Dos Passos and the USA trilogy, but 1919, as is oftentimes true, I think, with maybe a lot of second books in a trilogy, really felt like we were kind of treading water. It felt like there weren't any new characters or any real unique developments. I will say, and as you're aware, if you watch my video about the USA trilogy, which if I can remember how to do that card thing, I'll leave a link up here. There are 4 elements to the books. There's a narrative element which involves multiple characters, which for me has gotten to be confusing and a little bit haphazard, and the quality of that I felt went down for most of 1919. There are these biographical sketches of historical figures, some of whom are recognizable, who you would know now, and some of who are more obscure because of the passage of time. Then there are these little newsreel sections where literally news headlines, real or fictitious, are just kind of thrown together and not always complete to give an impression of the time. And then there are these camera eye things with these kind of first-person interior monologue, perhaps stream of consciousness things. All of those things except the narrative had been great, so 1919 turned into a bit of a slog, but then near the end I thought it kind of regained some of its momentum, and I'm again looking forward to the 42nd parallel, but I wanted to finish a little early before the end of June, just to kind of give myself some space between that and the next volume of the USA trilogy, which will be The Big Money, which Jack and I are reading in July. I also finished Detransition Baby by Torrey. This is a buddy read that I am engaged in actively right now with Mark Nash, Sina from Beating Around the Books, and Roz from Scaladanling about the books. So I can't say much about the book, or I don't want to share a lot of my thoughts. I am planning on doing a complete review of the book and posting that on Tuesday of this week, because I do think it's worthy of a review, and I did like the book. That's all I will say about that. I continue my buddy read of No Modernism Without Lesbians by Souhami. This is a buddy read with booktuber Stephanie Cohen, and this has just been great and delightful, and it is a group biography of 4 lesbians who played a role in the development of modernism, whether through their support of the arts or because of the lifestyle they lived. This has just been really great, and I got a copy of, where is it? Oh yeah, I got a copy of Square Haunting by Francesca Wade for Father's Day, which is going to dovetail really nicely with this book. But this has just been great. The writing is effervescent. I'm not going to say anything about the next section because Stephanie and I still have to talk about that on Sunday. But this has been good. And then the book I've been neglecting this week has been Maurice by E.M. Forster. I had gotten to where I think I was about 80 pages from the end, and to be honest with you, I haven't picked anything up as of today, this morning. I haven't picked this book up again, but I'm hoping to finish it off by Monday. And I will say that while in the first 80 pages I really felt at sea and lost, and like I didn't know why this book was considered so great, other than the writing is beautiful. Here, in the middle sections, I really started to see and feel the power of the book and have true empathy, sympathy for the characters, and to really care about them, and that's made a big difference. So, that's kind of my reading for right now. I am hoping that if I finish all my other reading early enough, I will be able to pick up A Mercy by Toni Morrison, which I mentioned, I believe, that I had not read. I mentioned this in my video about Toni Morrison, Where Not to Start, because that's one of the 3 novels of hers that I haven't read. It's over there on the shelf, and I'm not going to roll back there to get it. I did have one interesting comment on that video, which I wanted to address. and that is apparently the title can lead people to believe that I might be leading people to believe that I don't think you should read these authors at all. These are going to be attacks on these authors. They're not. These are all authors that I care about a lot, and I've read a number of their books. It's just really trying to, if anything, get you to, or get readers to read their books and get introduced to their work and their books in the best possible way. That's really what I'm up to. Okay, so that's my reading for this week, and my reading plans for the rest of the month. On Thursday, I'll have a wrap-up video of everything I read this month. Just kind of go back over these things, and then probably more importantly, a TBR for July, which will include at least 2 buddy reads and maybe 3. I haven't heard from one of my proposed buddy readers about July, but I will be contacting her today or tomorrow about whether or not we're still on for that buddy read. But anyway, that's kind of what we'll have the rest of the week. My ill-fated and much despised gardening efforts continue. Last week, or I think I showed you a stump that I dug out of the ground, and I've been working on stump number 2, which is in a different flower bed, and that's not going very well. It seems that the further down I dig, the wider the stump gets, and so I've nicknamed it Jabba the Stump because it kind of seems to be shaped like Jabba the Hutt to me. So that's ongoing. I've noticed a couple of other things, or I noticed one weird thing going on kind of with YouTube, and I just noticed it on Thursday. And so if you look, I think it'll be right down here. Notice that the font or something has changed about the way they put the title. It's like bolded, or they changed the font of the titles. Everybody else is seeing that, right? That's not just me on my channel. Anyway, I thought that was weird. I also wanted to go ahead and mention really quickly that Faulkner in August is coming up in August. Faulkner in August 2021 is coming up in August, and I'll be putting out or making a promotional video that comes out sometime maybe in the second or late in the first week of July with more details about that. But our Faulkner novel for Faulkner in August this year is Sanctuary, Faulkner's 1929 novel, which in many ways really kind of helped to solidify his career and finance a lot of the rest of his career. But we're going to be reading that. I'm hosting along with Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. This is our 3rd year that Alan and I have hosted. And then the Codex Cantina is also hosting. They helped host last year with The Sound of the Fury, which means that we're all going to be at some point making some videos. There's no real defined schedule, and that's great. I like the way that works out around Faulkner in August. And then a number of people have joined us in our Voxer chat about it, and so I'm really looking forward to all the discussions about that. Alan wanted me to make sure you knew that he is doing a giveaway of 2 copies of Sanctuary. That's Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. You have to go over to his channel and ask for them, and he will send them to you. So I'll leave a link to his channel down below, so you can do that. 4th of July is coming up here in the United States of America, and while there are many things in American history about which we as Americans have to take responsibility for and are not necessarily sources of pride, I celebrate July the 4th every year happily and proudly because of all the changes and all the progress the United States has made. It is not a journey that's complete, but I do think it's worth celebrating the successes that have taken place and the progress the United States has made, from fighting a bloody war to end slavery to the struggle for women's rights to the struggle for civil rights and so on. Advances have been made far too slowly, not changes made deeply enough, but things that are worth celebrating. So I will celebrate July the 4th as I do every single year, proud of the things the United States has done to overcome the things about which we should not be proud, and hopeful that we will continue on in that direction. Along those lines, I did a video about critical race theory last week, and I just wanted to follow up on that by providing you with a link to a University of California at Berkeley professor who is an expert in critical race theory, and who she explained some common misconceptions that go along with this, with all this controversy about critical race theory. And she does a much better job than I could and that I did. And so I'm going to leave a link to that video. Also, I'm going to leave a link to a New Yorker article that basically shows where this controversy came from, and you need to know this controversy was manufactured by a conservative activist who is looking for a way to continue what here in the United States we call the culture war, a war between right and left over cultural things. And while he didn't make up critical race theory, he's the guy responsible for kind of convincing the right-wing media that critical race theory was the last bugaboo, or was the next bugaboo they could use to scare white Americans into believing that they were under attack from minorities, which is basically, you know, really just a white supremacist trope that goes back to, as I've said, the Stonewall Rebellion in South Carolina in the early 1700s. So I'll leave a link to that as well in case you're interested, and I won't go on any more about that. Also then, in relationship to the 4th of July, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite kind of American foods, and that's hot dogs. But specifically, I wanted to ask you a question about what I refer to as slaw dogs. That was the picture in the show card, and I'll put the picture of the slaw dogs over here, and that's essentially a hot dog, the most American of all foods possibly, a hot dog with coleslaw on top. Now, I make mine with mustard and just coleslaw, and they are delicious, but I was wondering, and my wife I'm from the South, my wife is not, and I don't think she'd ever heard of a slaw dog before I made them, and I don't eat them very often because I don't oftentimes have hot dogs and coleslaw at the same time, but when I do, I really like them. And so I was just wondering if a slaw dog is something anyone outside of the American South has ever heard of or eaten. I don't know why I thought that was interesting, but I did. Hey, it's my Saturday Hodgepodge. I'll do what I want. I also wanted to shout out, as I was about to say, two creators here on BookTube for some accomplishments that I noticed. One is Emma from the Overstuffed shelf, recently received her Ph.D., and then she did a whole vlog video about her defending her dissertation, and so I'll leave a link to that down below. And then Jenny Johnson, who is a Canadian booktuber and an artist, completed her Virginia Woolf quilt, and it's really beautiful. And I've been watching her channel as she's kind of been making this quilt all along, and others, and so I'll leave a link to that down below. And congratulations to those two ladies for really great accomplishments. I was kind of stunned and staggered by both. I'm not exactly sure what Emma's PhD is in. I think she's some kind of a microbiologist or a chemist or something like that, but somebody way smarter than me. And then, as I've been doing here with my Saturday Hodgepodge recently, I've been once again kind of leaving links to music that I like, and I've been feeling a bit nostalgic. I told my wife yesterday that apparently 54 is the age at which nostalgia really sets in hard and heavy, and so I was thinking about the 80s. Now, you know, I used to be a teacher, and one of the things that began to happen in the early 2000s was that young people really began to think about the 80s as this kind of golden age of music and talk about how great the music in the 80s was. And to be honest with you, I thought most of the music that I was exposed to in the 80s was just terrible. And even though I enjoyed MTV and going over to friends' houses to watch MTV, most of the music most of the pop music that came out in the 80s, I just thought was incredibly weak and awful. And I really still do. In the 80s, I was into Rush and Iron Maiden and Ozzy and Black Sabbath and, you know, metal bands was what I listened to in the 80s. But, you know, secretly on the slide, there were some pop songs that I liked, so I thought I would leave you a list of 80s pop songs that I liked. And I still have some affection for. Some of these are obvious, and some of these might be just a little bit more obscure, but I'll leave a link to them down below. The first is Stop the World and Melt With You by Modern English. And then Voices Carry by a band called Till Tuesday. Now, the subject of that song is not pleasant, but the song is really, to me, arresting. It has, you know, some pretty typically classic 80s sound to it, as all these songs do in their own way. But that song I really always liked. And then Overkill by the Australian band Men at Work. Here in the United States, Men at Work was probably most famous for their kind of silly video and the song Land Down Under, which was, for many people, I think, an introduction to, in the United States, an introduction to Australia in general. That's where I learned what Vegemite was. or I learned about Vegemite. I had to look up what Vegemite was. And then probably the best known maybe of these songs would be Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, which is probably one of the great pop bands of the 1980s. Anyway, I'll leave a link to those all down below. So there you go. There's my Saturday Hodgepodge for today. I hope I covered all of the weird stuff I wanted to talk about today. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.